Hello there, and a very warm welcome to the Morning Cafe. My name is Leangari, and this is indeed a beautiful morning, and we hope that you are already kicking it off on a high note. But let's help you kick it off higher than you have just begun it. And I want us to take a look at the dailies today. And I know I have Gerald Bitok, a political strategist, online via Skype to help us understand some of the stories we'll be looking at in the dailies today. Hi, Gerald.
Good morning, Leah. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
I don't know if Gerald can hear me.
I can hear you, but I think...
Fantastic.
I can hear you.
I think it's on my end. I couldn't hear you from the studio. But Gerald, I just want us to take a look at the People Daily. There's a headline here that reads, 15 counties most exposed to virus, talking about basically the Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe giving the COVID-19 status update at Tigoni, level 4 in Kiambu yesterday. He lauded the country's level of response, but we are also seeing the cases rising. I mean, Gerald, there's been a concern in relation to the spike of cases as far as COVID-19 is concerned. What do you make of the coming months, considering the trend that we are seeing right now?
I think we are headed for worse days, and the government almost did a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, I must say that by September, thereabouts, we'll be looking at 200 cases, but it looks like it's coming too soon. Yesterday, we were looking at almost 170 something, so it means that the cases are continuing to escalate. But the problem is, Leah, is that it's continuing to spread within the counties, outside Nairobi and outside Kilifi and Mombasa counties, which had earlier been marked as hotspots for COVID-19. So we are seeing a situation whereby we're getting new tests from our country. I also have the cases in Mosingishu that are coming up as well, and other far-flung areas. And I think where we are heading to is becoming worse because it's spreading. It's no longer in the places that we thought we could contain within. We locked Nairobi, we locked Kilifi, we locked Mombasa because we imagined that we were going to contain the disease. But again, you find that it's spreading. So we look at Aplika days in terms of the spread of the virus. And I don't think we're going to look at any chances of the disease going down the way we've been imagining. Instead, it's going to go up. And the way it started, we started with actually one case. When we started with one case, there was a lot of panic across the country. Right now, we are looking at over 150 cases daily, and it's still going up. So I think it's going to get crazier. The infections are going to run. They're going to run further. And I don't know what measures the government is going to do to ensure that it contains the disease within the counties or actually within the country before it explodes to across the borders.
You know, Gerald, when you look at this story, before we were talking about 4 counties that had been on lockdown because they were considered to be hotspots as far as COVID-19 is concerned. This story further in page 4, talking about 15 counties now, Gerald, will bear the brunt of pandemic, and this is according to scientists. And what scientists are saying is that 15 counties will bear the brunt of the COVID-19 when the full impact of the disease hits the country next year. We are talking about next year. The hope was perhaps maybe, towards the end of next year or early January, this would be a thing of the past. But now we're talking about 15 more counties, according to scientists, and talking about also next year. Not so much of good news here.
Yeah, like I said, it's getting crazier every day. And I think it puts us in a situation where we're wondering actually, because in this case, when we be talking about the money that has been pumped into fixing the disease for a couple of months, we would expect that the cases would be de-escalating, not escalating. So when we talk about not only cases going up in the counties that have been earmarked as hotspots, we are not talking about other 15 counties out of the 48 counties that we have as a country. Then it means we are looking at disaster. When we talk about the counties, Nairobi County, Kilifi County, Mombasa County, that we had locked actually as a COVID-19 hotspots, and still we're seeing diseases. Then it means even the lockdowns, we even think about, because you realize that it puts us. So now we are going to drive the socio-economic landscape of the country. How we are going to run the machineries? Because when you talk about the projection of next year, then it means we don't even have this year to plan for. So, Leah, it's quite worrying. It's unfortunate. And I want to ask a question. in this case. When you look at the escalations that we're talking about, and I could hear was being announcing yesterday, we've not really had what the government is really doing to curb the disease, the spreads and all that. We're hearing about the announcements every day. So when you talk about 15 counties, it means we are not doing anything in terms of containing the disease, either in one place or actually containing it within the quarantine facilities. So for me, these are very worrying statistics. The projection is extremely shocking, and I don't see this thing going down in time. So like puts us in a place where we need to ask the same way we have in the same discussion last week is, what is the way forward? What do we need to do?
Gerald, okay. Yeah. Let me just mention a little bit more on this story. It's talking about some of the counties, the ones that have been singled out in this case, Gerald. They have been singled out because of a big population that is over 60 years and high prevalence rate of diabetes, HIV and AIDS and hypertension, which place those who contract the coronavirus at a higher risk of developing dangerous complications. But further to this story, I think it's also talking about, based on the projections highlighted in this story, scientists are warning that by February next year, when the disease will have hit the peak, the country will require, imagine, 356,000 hospital beds and 115,000 ventilators to cope with the pandemic. Do you think we will be equipped by that time, Gerald?
You talk about billions of money that already been spent. If you are not equipped now, what makes you that will be equipped next year? I mean, it's not even rocket science. The way the country has been, the government has been behaving and investing in the wrong things. It tells you that by next year, February, we might even be worse, because we are looking at a few cases we're talking about right now, and we're talking about billions of money that has been spent. We are not seeing any new hospitals being built. If you remember there, when the disease started in China, we could see infrastructure taking shape. You could see hospitals being built. You could see new facilities being invested in. You could see medical equipment and all that. When the disease came together, there was a phase about inventions of ventilators, looking for ICU beds, fixing all this and that. And then it totally changed into another story of announcing numbers every day. If you ask me, I don't think we are ready today, and we will not be ready next year. And there's something you also mentioned about the vulnerable groups, in terms of those who are predisposed already because of the diseases they're trying to handle, including HIV, diabetes, and all the other health complications. When you look at the counties that you're talking about, it's like the disease is now going up country, and that is where our oldest populations live, and that is where actually the people, most of the people who are sick or who are predisposed to infections, stay. So it's a point where we need to have a very serious discussion on not only the numbers, but on the preparedness of the country as we speak. When you talk about the number of ventilators that you mentioned there, that is quite a perfect dream for Kenya. The way you look at it, so far we are not seeing the government buying ventilators, we're not seeing the government investing in ICU beds. So I don't know where these beds are going to come from.
Well, let's move on to another.
We are not ready now.
Gerald, a look at a related story, page 5. The headline reads, "Harder times for slum dwellers as virus cases rise." Basically, this story, Gerald, talking about Kibera informal settlements, yesterday recording 35 positive cases of COVID-19, and the congestion in the area coupled with poverty among the slum dwellers, most of who depend on blue-collar jobs, likely to worsen the situation. Bearing in mind this new revelations, what does it mean for slum dwellers, considering now we're hearing of cases of COVID-19 and it's rising by the day?
The reason why we are actually experiencing the escalating cases of coronavirus in slum or in informal settlements is because the government has not taken it very seriously. We've heard about the government only, and the biggest problem with Kenya is that they are very good in releasing speeches, reading out speeches, speaking out measures that they want to do. But when you go to the ground, the implementation is totally a different thing. And if you look at the statistics and also the pictures and the situation that has been happening in former settlements, there is no government intervention except the testing that has been going on. We are not seeing a preventive measure. And it has put me in a place where I've been wondering, Leah, whether the government is really serious about fighting the disease, or is actually only concerned and actually, more interested in announcing the numbers and actually giving the statistics of the rise in cases. When you talk about 35 cases in Kibra, when we heard about the first case, the government should have moved. And actually, the first place to contain the disease would have been informal settlements, because we realize that these are people, a lot of people are living in one place. They share amenities, they share toilets, they share social places, they share. It's a place that is really crap. And what the government should have done, actually, with all the billions that has been having, is ensuring that those people stay at home. Everybody stays at home to manage the disease. Those numbers are very scary. I can tell you that for free. And I don't know how they are going to really manage these places, because if you realize there, those are places where you cannot assert authority unless you really have the guts. You have to go out of your way to push these guys. And I've been wondering why the government has not really invested money in ensuring that these people are protected.
And the
government needs to understand that this is the riskiest group because they are the most mobile population. They wake up in the morning, they go to industrial area, they're going to Parklands, other guys are going to Kiambu Road, other guys are going to Karen, other guys are going. They are the most mobile population in this country. When you wake up every morning, you're driving on the roads every morning, you find a lot of them lined up on the roads, walking to jobs and all that. If you cannot contain this disease within especially such environments, then it means you are putting the whole country at risk. So the cases in informal settlements is crazy. At 35, I can tell you that the government, as we speak, should be on ground, ensuring that these guys are not only tested, but actually quarantined, treated, and ensure that they provide for them. Otherwise, if the government continues playing ping pong with the lives of Kenyans in informal settlements, we are going to have a crazier problem to deal with it.
All right. Well, Gerald, you've mentioned quite some pertinent issues there. Talk about the population in some of these slum areas. I don't know if you can hear me, Gerald. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, this story is also highlighting some of the things you've talked about. Talking about challenges of social distancing and struggle to earn a living, which is one of the key issues here, creating a new normal as residents adjust to the reality. When you look at social distancing, it's a really great concern because these are very highly populated areas, talking about Kibera, Mathare. What else can be done, Gerald? What else can the government do beyond the containment measures that are already in place?
I think what the government needs to do, the same way we've been talking about the need for the government to reanalyze its strategies, the government also needs to relook at its housing strategies. When you talk about social distancing, these are people who are living in houses that are actually almost separated with a curtain or a piece of sheet and all that. You cannot claim to implement social distancing. It's unrealistic in its own way. So when we're thinking about actually handling the disease, which is COVID-19, the government should also start thinking about the housing problem that we have as a country. If we had, I can remember actually almost a decade ago, when Kibaki was in government, he started a program of upgrading the slum areas, and one of those pioneer projects was Kibra. And if you look around Kibra, there are places that we have apartments. When the government can invest in housing, then it can tell its people to stay at home and they'll stay at home. That's number one. But you cannot tell people the social distance. Someone who stretches their hand and their hand is already in a neighbor's place, or a neighbor's table, you cannot tell them social distance. So the government needs to look at the housing concept, how it is going to deal with the housing problem that we have as a country. They need to invest in ensuring that these people have a place that they can stay in before they talk about implementing social distancing. So when the government mentions about social distancing in Kibra and informal settlements, that is the most unrealistic statement I've ever had. When the government talks about people staying inside the houses, it's the most unrealistic statement I've ever had. We talk about the stimulus program that the president released. I have not seen proper implementation in terms of ensuring that these people are provided for. Because apart from them being vulnerable to the disease, they are also vulnerable to daily provision. These guys have to survive every day. Social distancing layer is an impossible demand from government. Stay at home and sanitize and wash your hands is an impossible demand in a place where even running water is a luxury in itself. So if you ask me, the government has its priorities totally misplaced in informal settlements.
All right, Gerald. Let's just move away from COVID-19. Let's look at matters politics here. Of course, we know a lot of changes happening in the political scene. Page 2 has a story, Gerald, talking about NASA effects brutal purge in the House committees. The story basically talking about opposition members of parliament led by Minority Deputy Whip Chris Omalwa and his Malindi counterpart Aisha Juma were yesterday kicked out of key House leadership. Well, both have been accused of being Deputy President William Ruto's allies, and of course they are facing disciplinary cases ahead of them. Gerald, it seems like the purge will continue for some time for anyone who is considered to be disloyal.
Politics is becoming another corona. Every day we have new cases in both alliances. What's happening in NASA is actually what happened in Jubilee. And I'll tell you this, Leah, that it is a retrogression in terms of democracy. We are going back. We are actually unwinding and rewinding the democratic space that we've gained so far. We're going back to the dark days. In a party, and I've said this and I still insist that a party is not a personal property. It's a public property. Any party, political party, is not owned by an individual, the way it has been played. It's a democratic space that people have the rights to exercise what they believe in. And I was saying an exchange between Mudavadi and Raila on the part that has been going on, because you can remember that Mudavadi is a member of the NASA coalition that ODM is in. And the most funny thing is that Raila has turned into a bully in NASA. He's bullying even the principals in NASA. He's bullying Wetangula, he's bullying Mudavadi, he's bullying Kalonzo, he's bullying everybody else, in the coalitions. And if you look at the changes that are being done in Parliament, the parts that I'm talking about, is that the members of the NASA coalition have not been consulted on what needs to be the whip. And in fact, one of the guys who have been the whip, Tindi Mwale is a member of NASA, which is led by, a member of party of ANC, which is a member of NASA, Mudavadi's party. And Mudavadi is saying that he has not been consulted in the fight that's going on. How can NASA fight itself? I mean, ODM should kind of be delinked from, should delink its business from NASA. So if you ask me, the fight that's going on in NASA is not different from what was going on in Jubilee. And I declare that what was going on in Jubilee was legal. It was an abuse of democracy. It is dictatorship in its worst ways. And I think where we need to move in politics is that we need to get to a place where we can give people a space to be democratic. So Leah, the fight that's going on in NASA is going to get worse. It's going to get a lot of rebellion. I can see the MPs in NASA already fighting back, especially those affiliate parties already fighting back and saying we are not consulted in the changes that are being done in Parliament. And I can see the fallout of all the coalition parties, including Jubilee. Jubilee is actually an amalgamation of parties. It's going to fall. NASA is going to fall. We are going to look at other coalitions going forward. So if you ask me about the fight that's going on about NASA in the National Assembly, it's illegal. It's dictatorship. It is undemocratic. It reverses all the gains that we gained as a country. Maybe we need to go back to one.
If I can play the devil's advocate, Gerald. If I can just play the devil's advocate a little bit. I mean, the argument for the purge has been that they are trying to have a functional political environment which can deliver to the people of Kenya. Would you say that's the case?
You see, let me tell you something, Claire. These are not appointees. These are members who are elected by a population. I mean, you cannot claim to force people into a box. And I can tell you this. Raila asked the Democratic Space to do business as Raila Odinga. Wetangula has the Democratic Space to do business as Wetangula. Mudavadi has the space to do business as Mudavadi and the NC party. They don't have any business to whip members from. Of course, I can tell you this for free, that the functions of these committees in Parliament is not to serve a political party. When you talk about committees in Parliament, they are to serve the interests of Kenyans. And I can tell you, if we continue to entertain the kind of nonsense that's going on in our assemblies, then we're going to have a really terrible country where someone wakes up in the morning and says you need to toe the line and you go south when you're supposed to be going north, and everyone goes that way. So I think as much as we want to talk about ensuring that we harmonize the agendas of the political class and the political rulings to achieve this own agenda, we must understand that as well. As much as we have the differences in terms of, because you say, you mentioned it very well, that the people who are being targeted are seen to be aligning to the deputy president. There is no committee that is supposed to agree politically. When you talk about a justice committee, when you talk about an accountability committee, it does not say you need to form an accountability in line with supporting Raila Odinga or in line with supporting Uhuru Kenyatta. You come in as a legislator and you're supposed to protect the interest of the people within those committees. When you talk about accounting committees, you talk about health committees, you talk about education committees. It's not education for the children of politicians. It's education for the children of Kenyans who elected these people into parliament. So I think the parties should take away the nonsense of political parties, the political wrangles. Party wrangles should be taken away from parliament, because a parliament is a national institution that's supposed to serve every Kenyan, including me and you, Leah. that disagree politically on the political landscape.
Gerald,
so I think
it seems like a very thin line. Seems like a very thin line, Gerald. There's this famous saying. There's this famous saying that.
In fact, you are going to dig a tunnel. We are going to dig a tunnel between party politics. We are not only going to talk about a line. We need to dig a tunnel between party politics and National Assembly that's supposed to serve the interest of all Kenyans, including supporters of Mwalimu Dida, who got 3 votes. They also have a right to be served. And they don't need to be, to be kind of isolated because they are not singing for certain tune. So when you start budget because...
It sounds like a very thin line, Gerald, as you explain it. There's this famous saying that goes like, when you go to Rome, do as the Romans do. So it feels like if then you are a party member of ODM or Jubilee, whatever party outfit that you are a member of, should you not be loyal to the party leader? Because you've joined a party that has regulations and certain documents that inform the happenings of the party or how party members are supposed to conduct themselves. Should you not even perhaps also maybe, let's talk about loyalty. Should loyalty be very evident from the members who are members of that particular party?
You see what's going on right now, and I'll tell you this, and I want to tell you, they have all the right to run that budget within their parties. And I want to be very clear about this. They can run all the disciplinary actions within the parties, the party structures, within the party offices, within the party offices and all that. But the moment you bring those battles to parliament, where it's supposed to serve the interest of all Kenyans, then that's where you miss the whole point. And that's what I'm telling you. We need to dig a very big tunnel between parliament and Pangani and where is ODM office in Kilimani. We need to separate these entities. If you want to play party politics of loyalty to party leaders and all that, you take those politics to Orange House in Kilimani, or to Pangani, Jubilee, you handle your issues there. A parliament, a national assembly, whether the Senate and any parliamentary arm, is an institution of government. It's an institution of governance that's supposed to serve all Kenyans. So the purges and the disciplinary action should be done within the parties. And I can tell you by the way, there's no law in party constitution that tells you that you should be loyal to your party leader. I don't know which constitution you read. But in Jubilee, as a member of Jubilee, actually, I had my card here. I wanted to show you. Actually, forgot to bring it up. I'll show you next week. I'm a member of Jubilee Party. And I've read the constitution of Jubilee Party. There's no clause that says you must be loyal to your party leader. You are loyal to the party. No, the party leader.
The president's argument, though, Gerald, has been that some of the party members are not supporting his development agenda. How then should the president advance the development agendas he has for the country if then he has people who are trying to cripple his efforts? And I'm just playing the devil's advocate, Gerald. I'm just asking that question.
I'll tell you this. I'm happy that you're playing the devil's advocate. Right? It's good. But the thing is, the president is the most hypocritical man I've ever met. In 2011, April, while serving in Kibaki's government as a deputy prime minister, he was already holding political rallies in Accra Stadium. He was already doing rallies in Uhuru Park, welcome parties and all that. The president cannot claim to have realized now, 7 years or 8 years down the line, that actually he needs to bring in people to serve his agenda. If anything, what has the president achieved in the last 7 years? He needs to ask himself that. And I can tell you this, Leah, now you're becoming the devil's advocate. I'll tell you this for free, that the president is almost frustrated and is trying to hold on to something. He knows very well that these agendas have gone down the drain. When you talk about the big four agenda, we don't have stadiums, we don't have laptops that we talked about, we don't have houses that we talked about, If we had houses, we would actually not be talking about disease and Kipra. So the president, as much as he wants to say that he must force people to agree with him politically to advance an agenda, and actually agreeing politically and advancing the government agenda are two different things. We might disagree politically, but when we sit down on a boardroom and plan how to drive the agenda of the nation, we can drive because the MPs are also elected. You need to remember that. Gerald, they represent people and they have the interest here.
You're very passionate about this issue, and it's very evident.
What I know, the president has messed up.
Gerald, I want us to move away from matters politics and just go into a little bit of education. Of course, there's a great concern about teachers' welfare. We've seen the NAT Secretary General Wilson Sossion talking about the fact that some teachers are over 50 years and there needs to be measures put in place to protect them. We've talked about also reopening of schools throughout the week, Gerald. But then new revelations talking about the education sector. We're talking about now the Kenya National Union of Teachers warning the government and private school proprietors against sacking or reducing teachers' salaries and wages. We're talking about sackings. What do you make of this warning coming from the Secretary General of the NAT?
All right. First of all, you do not allow me to close politics ceremoniously. You close it unceremoniously. So I'll just want to make a statement about what you said about the president aligning the agendas of government in one place. Mm-hmm. There's also on the same paper, there's a story of Kibicho and Kirinaga governor, that is Anne Waiguru. They are fighting, and they're actually within Uruska. Kibicho is almost overshadowing Waiguru in Kirinaga, and Waiguru is feeling threatened. How do you make all that? I mean, why is the president not driving the path within his own team, within his own team, the local team that he's talking about? So the president cannot claim to put order outside when he cannot put order inside. Now to education. What Soshona said is quite correct. There, we cannot say it is risky to open churches, but it is safe to open schools. I mean, it's the dumbest statement I've had in a very long time. You're talking about closing bars and closing churches, but you want to open schools. The children that we have in this country are not experimental materials. They are not specimens for lab testing that you are talking about, that you want to release your children to go and test whether they're going to get virus or not. And if you look at the guidelines that the Ministry of Education is giving, it's quite ridiculous. In a country where children are still learning under a tree, you're talking about 15 children in a classroom. Which classroom? Which resources, doing desks and all that? You're talking about washing hands and sanitizing in schools. I can almost count when my eyes are closed. When I close my eyes, I can almost count the schools that have running water, especially public schools. So it's quite ridiculous. It's quite misinformed. I looked at the guidelines and I was shocked. I think these guys who are sitting in that boardroom, maybe they're discussing another country, probably the USA or some country in Europe, but not Kenya. Realistically, the kind of resources that we have invested in the education sector in Kenya cannot support the things that guidelines are offering. Not unless they want to rebuild the schools. They want to rebuild the whole system and all that. So I think there's no rush. A school is not a matter of life and death. KCPE is not ideal Soshan's word, it's not a ticket to heaven, it's not a certificate that you go and show at the door so that you can be let in by Angel Gabriel. A KCSE is not a matter of life and death. A school is not a matter of life and death. Even children are still at home right now. And nothing, I mean, they're still alive, they're okay, they're playing. We better have children alive next year or in 2022 and plan education than to risk right now and start talking about, when you look at the statistics that are running right now there, it will be very unfair for anyone to imagine that we can afford to open the schools. The disease and the coronavirus is now running all the way to the counties of countries. You're talking about 15 counties that we talked about.
Okay, Gerald.
It's fair.
All right,
so
Gerald.
It's not wisdom. Yeah.
You know, Gerald, as we come to a close of this discussion, further to your sentiments about the reopening of schools, today's story talking about the sacking or reducing of teachers' salaries and wages. Of course, we know the issue of teachers' salaries has been a persistent issue over the years, seeing teachers also going to the streets to strike because they want an increment. Now we are seeing the Kenya National Union of Teachers, Secretary General, that's Wilson Sossion, talking about, and even warning the government against sacking or reducing teachers' salaries and wages. I mean, do you think maybe this is a situation, you know, the way it looks like, do you think the government is taking advantage of the current situation to affect the salaries of teachers?
I think it's quite unfair. I'm not a teacher myself. I've only been a Sunday school teacher. Now the thing is, it's quite unfair to talk about reducing the salaries of teachers who have been struggling and agitating. Though you say they've been agitating for a salary increase. To talk about reducing the salaries or not paying the salaries right now, when everybody is struggling, everyone is trying to get something to move the days with. It's quite unfair. We should be talking about probably reviewing the salary scales for teachers right now. And why is it that the government has not taken the ticket? When we talk about civil servants still earning their full salaries, and we want to target teachers to reduce their salaries, I think it's quite unfair, Leah. It's quite unfair. In other words, it's quite unfair. We should be talking about we're actually looking at the salary scale for teachers, not reducing their salaries or actually cutting off their salary. So if you ask me, the government is misplaced. Let them pay teachers.
All right, Gerald, we talk. Thank you so much for making time, Gerald. Today, you're so passionate about everything we're talking about today, but I do appreciate your views and comments and insight into some of the
I
stories.
can see you also woke up well.
What's that?
I'm saying I can see you also woke up well, so you brought it the vibe.
All right, Gerald, thank you for making time. I appreciate you, and I do wish you a lovely day.
Thank you so much, Leah. You have a good day. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Gerald Bitok there, political strategist, helping us understand the stories in the dailies today. And right now, I want us to take a short break. And when we return, we look at some of the stories making headlines across the local, regional, and international scene. So don't go too far. Of course, I must mention today, in case you're a lover of new school or old school like me, by the way, you might want to stay on until the end because Mariam Mendy will be coming up later with some info about a new school and old school music. We'll be listening to some of the songs and just getting a bit of entertainment. So don't go too far. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the Morning Cafe. I'm just trying to get my stories here with me. I know that we have a lot to look at today, especially as far as stories making headlines across the scene are concerned. And of course, we're going to be looking at the local, regional and international scene, where we've seen a lot of political stories emerging, especially in Kenya. But let's just begin with this story, talking about a record of 147 new cases of COVID-19 have been recorded in Kenya in the last 24 hours, and this brings the national tally for confirmed COVID-19 infections to 1,618. The death toll, of course, here has also hit a new high, and so did the number of those who have recovered rather. So let's just hear from Zablon Macharia as he tells us more about this story.
147 is the highest number of new COVID-19 cases infections to be reported in Kenya within 24 hours since the first case was reported in March 13th.
Today, 147 people have tested positive out of 2,831 samples now tested. This means that Kenya now has 1,618 people who have now tested positive.
Out of the reported cases, Nairobi has 90, Kiambu has 3, Nyeri and Uasin Gishu has 2 cases each. On Thursday, 3 people succumbed to the virus, while 13 others were discharged from hospital, increasing the number of recoveries to 421.
Kebra, 35 persons. Langata, 15, and that's near Kibera as well. Makadara has 9, Westlands has 8, Embakasi Central has 6, Embakasi West has 5, Kamukunji has 2, Madare an additional 1. You recall that yesterday we had 33.
Health CS Mutahi Kagwe announced the new numbers in Kiambu County, where he had gone to assess the county's COVID-19 health response measures. Out of the leading counties with COVID-19 cases, Kiambu is ranked 4th with 39 cases.
This number accounts for more than 60% of the counties affected. Kiambu County has recorded 39 cases, placing it at number 4, behind Nairobi at 835, Mombasa at 490, and Kajiado at 65.
Even as the county government of Kiambu is trying hard to combat the spread of COVID-19, Governor James Nyoro has called upon the national government to assist them by allocating more funds in order to complete different projects.
That you continue to support us in addition to obviously getting more testing kits. We would also request that you help us to finalize that facility there. Because we wanted to be dedicated fully to COVID, we realized there is need to have a fully operational ICU of 14 beds.
Globally, at least 5.6 million cases have been reported, with more than 300,000 fatalities. Over 2.3 million people have recovered from the disease. Zablon Macharia, TV47, Nairobi.
Now moving on to another story here, talking about informal settlements in Nairobi like Kibra and Mathare are at a high risk of increasing the number of COVID-19 coronavirus cases to the high number of people there. And as Eli Logova reports, we are seeing here that the situation puts the slums on the spot, and the Ministry of Health will have to enforce measures to reduce the increasing numbers. Take a look.
The increasing number of COVID-19 positive cases in major informal settlements in Nairobi continues to cause fear and panic, considering the concentration of people living in close proximity and poor hygiene in those settlements. As of Wednesday, Mathare reported 33 new positive coronavirus cases, with the number increasing by 3 more cases on Thursday. Kibra took the bulk of new cases reported on Thursday.
The distribution in Nairobi is as follows: Kibra 35 persons. Langata, 15, and that's near Kibera as well. Makadara has 9, Westlands has 8, Embakasi Central has 6, Embakasi West has 5, Kamukunji has 2, Madare an additional 1. You recall that yesterday we had 33.
This high number of cases put people in these informal settlements and others at high risk, as people rarely observe health measures meant to curb the spread of the highly contagious virus. And even though a number of residents in Kibra and Madare slums have taken action to reduce the spread of coronavirus by mobilizing the people on containment measures, the steps are far from bearing fruits.
Si kazi yetu most yenye tunafanya ni kutrainisha wasee venye wanaweza nawa na venye wanaweza keep safe. Pia venye wanaweza dunga mask, hiyo design ndio tunajaribu kuwaelimisha. So hapa ndio wasee wananawa, process yote ni hapa.
Cumulatively, Madare and Kibra have recorded over 70 new COVID-19 positive cases in 48 hours. Eli Logova, TV47, Nairobi.
And now look at another story here. Central Bank Governor Patrick Njoroge has said that the Kenyan economy is showing signs of resilience despite the GDP growth being expected to slow in the second quarter of 2020 to about 2.3%, down from 5.4% in 2019. Well, Governor Njoroge, however, says small and medium-sized enterprises are not to have, rather they do not have enough credit to run, and most of them might collapse, sadly, in 2 months. Let's just hear the story from Lydia Gashomo.
A Central Bank of Kenya survey shows that 75% of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs polled do not have funds to last their businesses for another 60 days.
The survey that was done at the end of April, and that survey indicated that three quarters of SMEs, of the surveyed SMEs, do not have cash beyond 2 months. So that means by end June, these three quarters of SMEs would be, they're on the ropes. They'll be gone.
CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge says that most small entrepreneurs not only require funding, but also markets where they can sell their products.
It's not just financing. The SME situation is not just an issue of throwing money at SMEs. It's also an issue, it is finance plus. It's an issue of also providing them with appropriate solutions for their problems.
The governor also observed that as most banks continue to operate, especially those in areas affected by the cessation of movement, it remains a signal of a resilient economy.
As a matter of fact, a good example is when there was this sort of lockdown in Eastleigh here in Nairobi and also Old Town in Mombasa. Banks continue to operate, particularly here in Eastleigh. There are 9 bank branches, and they have continued to operate even in the context of the lockdown.
On the other hand, the horticultural sector has been operating well. At least 63% of horticultural products have been exported by mid-May. This beats the percentage of the same products exported in the month of May, the year 2019.
I can already see that these numbers show that there is sort of a return to normalcy in particular, let's say, sectors. And I think horticultural exports is one such sector.
Patrick Njoroge says compared to other countries globally, the Kenyan GDP remains positive, a clear indication that the economy remains resilient. The governor says that the reason behind this is that Kenya does not depend on one sector.
Now, it's true we do have some large exports, tea, flowers and other things like that, but we do have highly diversified exports and also destinations.
This comes at a time when the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Kenya retained the base lending rate at 7%. Lydia Gashomo, TV47.
Moving away from that story, Malindi MP Aisha Juma and her Kiminini counterpart Chris Wamalwa are the latest to face the NASA acts after they were de-whipped from parliamentary committees. The NASA House has so far done cleaning, and this comes at a time when the ruling Jubilee Party is also on a path to chastise members whose loyalty has been questioned. And Elizabeth Ntuku has more on that story. Let's listen in.
The political house cleaning continues, with the NASA excess falling on members whose loyalty to the coalition has come under sharp focus. Minority Leader in the National Assembly, John Badi, says the decision to de-whip Aisha Juma and Chris Wamalwa was agreed in the coalition parliamentary group meeting that was attended by over 150 parliamentarians from the parties that form the coalition.
To de-whip, to give the whip the authority and the mandate to formally recall some of our members from the committees. And some 9 members have actually been de-whipped. And de-whipping, I know Kenyans are not used to this, to the meaning of de-whipping. If a member is de-whipped by a party, he is completely de-whipped, meaning is removed from all committees, which is sitting in courtesy of the party.
The de-whipped members will cease to represent the coalition as leaders of any House committee till the coalition decides otherwise.
Honorable Christantus Wahungu Wamalwa, MP Kiminini, to be removed as the Deputy Minority Whip in the National Assembly and to be replaced by Honorable David Iseli Simiyu, MP Tongare. 2, we have resolved to remove Honorable Aisha Katana Juma, MP Malindi, as a representative of the NASA/ODM in the Parliamentary Service Commission and to be replaced by Honorable Mboko Mishi Khamis, MP Likoni.
Others who faced the edge of the NASA coalition's X include Mugirango South MP Silvana Sosoro, Butere Lomeka Tindimwale, Jomfu MP Badi Twalib, and Kaloleni's Paul Katana, amongst others.
Honorable Katana Paul Kahindi, the MP for Kaloleni, has been de-whipped from the Public Investment Committee. Honorable Badi Twalib, the MP for Jomvu, has also been de-whipped from the Budget and Appropriation Committee. So these members have been de-whipped completely. They will not sit in any committee. They have to go through disciplinary action if they are to come back.
Some of the ex-lawmakers say they have no problem with coalition's decision.
Butere voted for me without committees. I was born, I came out of my mother's womb without any committee. And therefore ODM should keep their committee, give it to their busybodies. I'm no longer interested in any committee.
Nataka kueleza labda makosa yangu yalikuwa kumwita Mheshimiwa Rais katika sehemu yangu ya Jomvu Miritini, akaniwezesha kunipatia madarasa 4 wakati tulipokuwa na 100% transition na tukiwa hatuna allocation.
Already the NASA coalition, through its leadership, having announced its changes in various committees in the National Assembly. Now it's a matter of do or die for the de-whipped members to see whether they fight for their positions or not. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47, Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
Well, let's talk about reopening Africa. COVID-19 pandemic measures are making life worse on the world's most vulnerable populations. And the devastating economic impact is so huge, by the way, that some countries have now chosen to refocus on saving their economies. And now, as we have seen, African countries are struggling to gradually ease their restrictions, and Uganda being amongst the latest to announce a possible reopening of the country. Let's get more on this story.
A safe-taking cue from fellow African countries, Uganda is set to ease its strict lockdown from June the 2nd, in part by reopening schools for learners set to do national examinations this year. In a televised address from the capital, Kampala, on the May of 19th, President Yoweri Museveni said the country had in a way managed to control COVID-19 spread, reporting no single death. The country has so far been on 54 days of restrictions, and Museveni says they are now better equipped to trace and detect the infections faster, hence the need to gradually regain normalcy.
4th of June, that is now for the public transport. The education institutions, again, they will use these 2 weeks to prepare, and by the 4th of June, they will tell you, they will put out their action plan, how things will move.
The East African nation joins others on the continent in easing restrictions that were introduced to curb the spread of the coronavirus before and after some recorded fast cases. The measures in most of the countries have brought economies to their knees, raising the risk of hunger and social distress.
Wakati umefika na nimeambia mawaziri wetu na haswa maofisa wetu wa afya waanze kuambia Wakenya, waanze kuwaeleza Wakenya ya kwamba hatuwezi kuendelea na lockdown, hatuwezi kuendelea maisha na curfew.
Citizens in the various countries have mixed reactions on the reopening though, some in support while others decry lack of readiness.
Ikiwa serikali imepata mkopo kutoka kwa IMF ama World Bank, hiyo mkopo iweze kuwa distributed kwa hawa Kenya na waweze kutusaidia.
It hasn't made that much effect simply because most of our people use public means plus private means. So it won't be easy for them to access our service.
In time of coming to work, you find that you come from very far and sometimes you foot or you ride. Now, if it is footing, you find that you come late.
Some of the countries that have started the ease include Ghana, that says its virus lockdown became untenable for economy. South Africa further eased rules as churches and other places of worship are set to reopen from June. Tanzania eased the few restrictions that were put. Nigeria began easing restrictions early May in its capital Abuja and in its largest city Lagos. As of Wednesday, Uganda had 281 confirmed COVID-19 cases and no death. The World Health Organization, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the World Economic Forum issued guidelines for African countries looking to reopen their economies after weeks of lockdown due to the coronavirus. Health authorities, however, are concerned that opening up too quickly could trigger a fresh wave of COVID-19 cases on the continent. Linda Alela for Africa 411.
Thank you for that report, Linda Alela. Well, Linda's report there takes us to a short break. I want us to come back right after this break. Take a look at some of the stories that are making headlines. Of course, let's talk about the virtual celebration of Madaraka Day. You may want to hear a little bit more about this story, so don't go too far. The Morning Cafe will be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching The Morning Cafe with me, Leangari. And right now I want us to take a look at some of these stories making headlines, of course, locally, regionally. Quite some sad news in the hotel industry. And I know I have Brian Mutier, who is online right now via Skype. Brian Mutier is a democracy and governance expert, and he'll be helping us understand some of the stories that we'll be looking at this morning. Brian, I want us to look at why hotels are folding and suspending operations. We're looking at the Norfolk Hotel, which has announced that it's closing its doors indefinitely, and by the way, firing all its employees. This is not good news at all.
Yeah, Leah, it's not good news at all, as you have rightly put it. Going by the fact that not a hotel such as Fairmont or Norfolk Hotel has been in existence for the last 100 years, and it has never been affected by any economic meltdown until enter COVID-19, when it has folded shop. And I think this is just an example of how it's just a representation of how business has been affected generally, especially the hotel industry, because of the restrictions of movement from here and there. You know, most of the hotels in Nairobi, in Kenya, have been surviving on what we call domestic tourism. And the fact that they do not have other ways of earning income, I think they have seriously gotten a serious beating. And I think it is not only in Kenya, but it's a worldwide trend. It's a worldwide effect that most businesses are suffering the same. Look, when you go to countries such as the United States, they are crying the same. You go to Europe, they are crying the same. You go to Africa, it's all business as usual, unusual because of COVID-19. So we have to accept that this is a new norm, that we have now to deploy all mechanisms that we have as investors to ensure that we recuperate from these effects of COVID-19. But it's not easy until people realize that this is a trend that we are going to live with it for some time, and it is a new norm.
You know, Brian, let's look at this impact. High-end hotels are said to be cutting costs. The other thing that here we're looking at is that restrictions on foreigners coming into Kenya have delivered a big hit to the country's tourism industry as well, which brought in 163.56 billion shillings last year. But further to this, we're also talking about most five-star hotels relying on tourism events and conferences. Basically, this conference have dried up. We're looking also at tourism drying up. If really the situation persists as it is, what are we talking about the hospitality industry? Even as we talk about the new normal, then what will be the likely new normal for the hospitality industry?
I think the big hotels, to me, I think are not going to suffer much once the embargo in terms of traveling is lifted, because as you have rightly put it, most of these hotels survive on conference, earnings that they get, especially from government. And now that government staff are not moving from Nairobi to Naivasha, they are not moving from Nairobi to Kisumu, to Nairobi, to Eldoret, where they normally hold their conferences. I think once the ban is lifted in terms of restrictions to move from point A to B, and the government operations in terms of public service operations are resumed, I think hotels are going to still, make money, or they are still going to come back to business. The small hotels are not going to be much affected, say for now, but with the new restrictions that we do not need crowds in hotels, where we have limited numbers who are supposed to have lunch or a meal at a certain time, I think hotels are going to, have it rough, but the common mwananchi is going to bear the wrath, because the cost has to be passed to the common mwananchi in terms of hiking the cost of products, in terms of meals, and so on and so on. So to me, I think it's still we are still going to recover. But as much as COVID-19 has no vaccine for now, I think we have to bear with the situation. But the moment that we are going to hear that we have some good news coming from maybe any quarter of the world that we have found vaccine, I think business is going to resume as usual, but it is not going to be, business as usual.
Okay. Brian, just following up on some of the sentiments you're giving us there, this particular topic we're talking about is informed by the fact that the Fairmont, the Fairmont Norfolk and Fairmont Mara Safari Club being closed indefinitely and employees being sent home. Basically, this story tells us of the situation as it is in the hospitality industry. I know you've mentioned that there's hope, that things will improve later. But when we look at the current situation, because as of course, as it is right now, the World Health Organization is talking about a possible second wave of COVID-19. So we do not really know when COVID will end. But how then can maybe the hospitality industry be assisted to remain afloat? Is there a way maybe the government can cushion the industry itself?
Well, as long as talking about local solution here in Kenya, as long as the travel ban is still in place, let me just sympathize with hotel investors that they have to bear with the situation. They cannot just force issues. They cannot make money out of nothing. They have to bear with the situation until the curfew is lifted, because there's no way you can make money, from just a few people who are coming from your locality. Look, if hotels in Kenya cannot sustain themselves just by relying on what we call domestic tourism, unless they get that impetus injection from foreign tourists, it's not going to be easy. So they have to accept that we have a challenge. They have to accept that we have a situation. Even the economy of the country generally has a beating, and we are bearing with the situation because we had a projection of 5.6 economic growth. Now we are talking about 2.2. Now we are talking about 2.1. It's a new norm, and we have to accept that this is a new thing that has come to, affect every sector. And hotel industry itself has to bear with it until, good news comes from wherever it will come that we have vaccine. But until then, we have to just, devise ways. If most of them can close business or shop for now, well, we cannot blame anyone, because we have seen even restaurants, mid-level restaurants, closing business, people going at home. If in fact some lost their jobs after the first, the first month into business, waitresses and waiters, hotel industry players and so on and so on. Most of them, majority of them lost their jobs, and they are now used to the new norm of, surviving from one end to the other.
Do you think it's time for us as a country, especially now, to heighten the conversation of unemployment in the country?
Very good conversation. Of course, youth have been bearing the brunt of unemployment in this country. And when you look at some of our government policies, some of them are so good. In fact, when you look at some of the issues such as youth fund, the structures that are there to cushion the commoners, the AGPOs, in terms of easing youth to do business, and even the general, requirements for ease of doing business. These are some of the new discussions that we need to keep afloat, because now we know where the rain is actually beating us seriously. And as youth of this country, I think it's the high time that government now, other than the stimulus package that they came up with the other day through the presidency, I think we need to be more creative in terms of how to empower our youth. We cannot just rely on informal and formal employment, but we need also to ensure that youth are given opportunities also to explore their talents and ensure that they have sustainable ways of surviving. Look at now, most of them are now going through huge, serious depression, issues. And who is there to cater for them? Nobody. Nobody. And nobody cares, because most of the people are employed. Maybe the go-getters have it already set for themselves in terms of their lives. But the youth of today, if you go around Leah, I'm telling you, that's a bleak situation. If you look at the number of phone calls that personally I do receive from youth or youthful people seeking for support in terms of, just a simple meal of the day, it's such a bleak situation. And therefore, it's a wake-up call for us to, as a government or as a country, to be able to put measures in place to ensure that youth are empowered. They are given some subsidies, and also some soft loans which do not have so much conditions and so on and so on, so that they are able to, make their life better lives.
All right. Well, let's look at matters politics a little bit, Brian. Talk about the NASA house cleaning. We have seen yesterday opposition members of parliament led by Minority Deputy Whip, that's Chris Omalwa, and his Malindi counterpart, Aisha Jumwe, being kicked out of key house leadership posts. The purge seems now to be in NASA, and it's still ongoing in Jubilee.
Why are we still talking about NASA at this time, Leah? I thought NASA died a long time ago anyway. And even the protagonists of NASA, including Musalia Mudavadi, Wetangula, Raila Odinga, most of them, if you heard them clearly some time ago, all of them say that NASA, stopped, ceased to exist. But if it's still there, a moribund vessel of power, I think we can still discuss about it. But anyway, going forward by the trend that Jubilee did the other day in terms of de-whipping some of its errant members or perceived errant members, and I'm now told that NASA has actually embarked on the same housekeeping, house cleaning business. I think it's normal because at a time like this when we are heading towards elections, of course you expect a lot of realignment, you expect a lot of shifting from point A to point B and so on and so on. That's the time that members who have been tested in terms of their loyalty have passed some exams and others have failed. So when you look at the trend of Jubilee and NASA in terms of a house cleaning business, it is a norm, and it's now a situation where they are saying, look, we have been walking all this journey and we have known who are loyal and who are not loyal, and now this is the time to crack the whip and ensure that party loyalty remains, because people have to toe the party line. Unless you are loyal to your party, let me tell you, Leah, you are not in the business of politics. In politics, you have to keep your line, you have to keep your lane, and you have to adhere to the principles, you have to adhere to what the party calls for in terms of tolerance, in terms of, towing the party line and so on and so on. So, to me, it's not something new, because at the end of the day, now, those who are crying that they have been actually treated unfairly, the likes of Murkomen, the likes of Kihika, the likes of Kindiki, those are the new guys now whom we are going to see, for me, the next frontier in terms of the opposition of the day. So I'm not going to be surprised if those who are also, being de-whipped from the NASA side are also going to take up, the same side with the Kindikis and the Murkomens of the day, and maybe, move towards the DP's camp and maybe court some other parties whom they might feel that they are like-minded parties to form maybe a new alliance. Who knows? They might also be a strong force to reckon with when it comes to 2022 elections.
All right. Well, I have a question for you, Brian. Wamalwa being replaced with Tongaren Member of Parliament, Eseli Simiyu. Why Eseli in particular and not anybody else?
Well, Eseli has been a very key player when it comes to NASA politics. By the way, that guy gave it to him because he's one of the key brokers when it comes to, background and the doings of any political party. Put him behind the scenes and he does a beautiful job. Eseli is one of the, brightest and one of the most intelligent politicians coming from the Western tier. And to me, I'm not surprised that he was not even the initial holder of that position. Where was he? Why was he not given that position in the first place? So Eseli, to me, is a go-getter, is a workaholic when it comes to party strategies behind the scenes, and is somebody personally I would want to vouch for in terms of that position.
Okay. Well, when I was speaking to one of the analysts in the country, an analyst just like you, a very passionate analyst, talking about the fact that he feels that this purge that we're seeing, whether in NASA or Jubilee, goes against democracy. But again, when you listen to what Junaid Mohammed, the Minority Whip, was saying yesterday, is that the new changes are aimed at not only improving the performance of the coalition in Parliament, but also strengthening party democracy. Do you really think that there's an advancement of party democracy when we look at the current purge?
Very high enrichment of democracy within party politics. And I think we have come of age, Leah, if you are a good student of history. When we used to have the de jure one party, KANU, during those days, I think you could not lift a finger against your party leader, whom by default was one and only MOI. And you could not question his decisions. You could not raise a finger against whatever he said. Whatever he said within that political party as a structure was law, and it could not be challenged by anybody. But look, we have come of age, Leah. With the advent of a multi-party system, democratic party era, I think we should actually count our gains more than the losses with this kind of, new development. Look, if party members are able to question when heels within a party are being, done, to me, I think it's a plus because it shows that, freedom of expression, the fundamental rights are being, given, and the democratic space is expanding each and every day. And the party politics is a healthy debate. When you see members able to question status quo or moving or disagreeing with what the party bearers or political party bearers say, then to me, I think is a move in the right direction. So to me, I think there's nothing to worry about. It's only that sometimes it might be seen that it's being used in the wrong way in terms of punishing people who have just expressed themselves. Now that becomes another question or another debate for another day, whether parties are really living to the ideals of democracy or they are just being managed by people who have temperamental issues or have some scores to settle and so on and so on. So there is a thin line between party democracy and also some emotional, driven decision-making process within a particular party.
Well, some analysts say, Brian, that perhaps the patch that we're seeing in the various political outfits speaks into maybe a possibility that there's a watered down of democracy in the country. Would you say that's the case? Because that's what some analysts feel actually at this moment.
It's a combination. It's a combination of, gains that we are experiencing in terms of expanded democratic space, and also maybe some elements of watering down the gains that we have so far amassed ever since the onset of multi-party democracy started. And I'm saying this because when you look at some of the decisions that are being made by some of the party officials against some of the perceived errant members, I think to me some of the reasons are just trivial reasons. Some of the reasons are just reasons which are driven by self-vendetta against some of the junior members. For example, if you tell me that I'm going to be expelled from a political party simply because I did not attend a NEC meeting and maybe I was held up somewhere, I think to me that's not a good reason to expel someone because, that person did not, meet a threshold of being expelled or expelled from a political party. There are major reasons why you should whip a member from a political party, which are gross violation of the constitution of that political party, or maybe huge cases of corruption within that party, embezzlement, and so on and so on. But just missing one, meeting, to me, that one is a law for that political party. Therefore, political parties need to to take the threshold a little bit higher in terms of ensuring that by the time they expel somebody from that party, at least he has really, really messed up big time.
Yeah. All right. Let's just move away from matters politics. When we look at the virtual Madaraka Day, and we know that Madaraka Day is always about having large gatherings of people at the stadium and having entertainment and dance and all that stuff. But then now we're talking about a virtual Madaraka Day because we understand that this year's Madaraka Day celebration was scheduled to be held in Kisii will now be held virtual by the president. Interesting new normal, would you say?
Yeah, sure. But we should not complain at all because if our kids in Form 4 and Standard 8 are, likely to miss their exam because of this COVID-19, who are we to complain about not being able to attend Madaraka Day? I think some of these issues need to be prioritized. I think we should be worried much about our students not, being able to sit, even the secondary. Not only just the secondary and also at the university level where we have students who are also likely to miss their exams simply because they cannot be allowed to integrate They cannot be allowed to sit together and so on and so on. Now, going back to the virtual conducting of Madaraka Day, I think to me, it's long overdue if the trend is still the same way. That Mutahi Kagwe is announcing big numbers. Now he was actually on 2 digits. Today he's actually on 3 digits. Announcement of the numbers of cases of COVID-19, and therefore, of course, we cannot risk the issue of patriotism by just being a little bit blind to the fact that COVID is real. COVID is actually here with us, and we cannot play around with it. Now we have a virtual one. Of course, we did the Kotu one, which was Labor Day on 1st May at State House, and we saw everything deliberated just correctly. I mean, to the people, and all what was supposed to be, announced or, broadcasted to the people was done. So I don't think, conducting a virtual Madaraka Day is a big issue. So because we have also seen several government activities which ought to have been, done, physically, all done virtually. And so to me, I think it's a new norm that we have to understand that we have a situation and we have little choices that we have to put our cards on the table.
Can you imagine how many people will be online?
Well,
watching the celebrations from online.
There will be many people watching the celebration, but thanks to technology, we have the Facebook. Like right now, most of the people are watching TV47 on Facebook, and I think you have to give it to you guys that you have really run away with this one. And again, we have TV sets, we have mobile phones. Most of the Kenyans have these, mobile phones, and they are able to stream live. So to me, I think, in fact, it might even surprise you by the number of people who will be watching the proceedings live on phone and also on TV.
Well, that's also a related kind of situation. We're talking about the English Premier League resuming. How are you feeling about this? Are you a fan of football, Brian?
Oh my goodness, big time. Arsenal, dive. We call myself Arsenal fanatic because I've been following the proceedings of EPL since the inception in 1992, before it was actually converted. And now that we are resuming, you see, right now, I must confess that men are going through very hard times, I tell you. Now that we do not have Formula One, we do not have English Premier League, we do not have the Bundesliga, we do not have Serie A, we do not have what we call French Division 1, and so on and so on. So men are naturally, fanatic of sports, and the moment you take away these, they're dialing away, I think you really mess up with their psychology, and most of them are depressed. They have nothing else to do. This is the only sport, this is the only game, this is the only thing that used to keep men busy over the weekends, and that was able to loosen the temperatures and the pressures after a long week hustle. And now that we do not have this, we are just confined with our families here, children running up and down, some of them actually sitting on the tables and so on. So it's a messy affair. So bring it on. I think come 17th of next month, when EPL resumes and Arsenal takes on Man City, to me, I think...
was just about to tell you that because I'm seeing your excitement, and I was just about to tell you, let me just make you more excited because you mentioned your team, your favorite team is Arsenal, and there'll actually be a game that's between Manchester City versus Arsenal. You know, the interesting thing is also about this story is, in case you are used to going to the stadiums to watch the matches that you prefer to watch, this time around it will be a little bit different. I tend to question myself, how will the players, be there, playing without any fans in the stadium? Can you imagine the situation?
Yeah, we always say the fans are player number 12 in each team, for every team. And the absence of fans, of course, it is something, worth noting, because the aura, the ambience, the environment when the fans are there, you cannot compare. When you go to a stadium such as Banabo, which is a 96,000 seater, did you get me right on that? 96,000? You can imagine the noise and the aura, the atmosphere when you are playing as a player there. It's the madness is deafening, and you can imagine now playing, in quiet environment, quite boring. Of course, it's not business as usual, but because of the situation that they have found themselves in terms of the clubs, they can only bear with us because some of the clubs are just remaining with some few matches to go, especially for Liverpool to be crowned champions. They just need to win maybe, to win maybe 4 points and they are crowned champions. So they can only play in an empty situation, because of the situation that we have found ourselves in, waiting for new development. Maybe with a new vaccine coming a long way, will come a long way and ensure that sports resume their normal, madness.
Going by your excitement, it's all over your face, Brian.
Oh, yes.
The provisional return of the EPL is definitely something for people, I think, many. They would rather even have it than not have it at all, as much as people will not be able to attend in the stadiums. I think, especially because I know the Kenyan men, they love soccer.
No, they
can spend a whole
TV.
weekend just watching soccer.
Yeah, they can spend that. To them, I think it's just second to religion. And besides soccer, we also have fanatics who follow what we call Formula One, the likes of Hamilton's. Personally, I'm a big fan of Formula One. And also other sports such as sevens, rugby, which is a big, big time for Kenya. I think we are missing something. As male fraternity and some few, divas here and there, we are missing these sports big time. And therefore, being in the field and not being in the field, watching on the telly, I think to me it doesn't make much difference because we are used to watching matches on teles, and we have always been getting our satisfaction in terms of what we anticipate for. Say for some few who are able to, follow the proceedings live in UK, but for majority of the local middle-level Kenyans, I think watching the matches on tele just quite okay.
And you know what? It also plays to advantage, by the way, especially media houses, because we'll be broadcasting these matches live, so we'll be making some money, hopefully.
Absolutely. But now these media houses, some of these prepaid channels, such as maybe DSTV, maybe, and other prepaid channels, I think to them they are suffering big time because I saw an advert when you pay one, you get three. Pay one monthly subscription and get three free of charge because they have no content to entice people other than just the sports, which was their mainstream. And now they are suffering big time. I think every sector has been affected by COVID-19.
Okay. Brian Mutier, always a pleasure to have you on this program in the morning. We do love your company and, of course, we do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for making time today.
Thank you, Leah. Have a good day and ensure that you sanitize, you keep social distance.
See you, Brian. Well, that has been Brian Mutier, who is a democracy and governance expert, helping us understand some of the stories that we were looking at from the local, regional, and global scene. Thank you so much for staying tuned until this moment. Of course, as I mentioned earlier on, in case you are a fan of New School, you may want to stay tuned. And in case you are a fan of old school like me, because I'm an old soul, you could say, you may want to stay tuned because Mariam Mendy is coming up with something very interesting, time-packed with a lot of entertainment. And I'll just leave it to you to see exactly what she has lined up for you. I won't say too much, so stay tuned, don't go too far. The Morning Cafe will be back shortly.
That tender, she can give you a good one.
Entertainment. My name is Mendy Mariam, and as promised, today we have the show in its lit. As you can see, we have the gym dancers in studio. Hi.
Hi.
Guys. Gym dancers crew.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
We are good.
How are you feeling? It's Friday.
It's awesome. It's really awesome.
Okay. We also have Boroyeng here in studio, a Twitter influencer. In a short while, he's going to be telling us about what's on the socials and what's trending and everything that is on the trends on our socials. We also have DJ JD254. Hi, DJ JD.
Hello.
Mambo.
Poa sana.
Oh, the show is good today. I'm feeling psyched up. Everything is good. Everything is awesome. How's the music?
The music is awesome. I'm planning on playing some new school right now.
Yes.
Because we don't have much time.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today we are basically talking about old school music and new school music.
Yeah.
For us to demystify this, of course, we have a DJ with us in studio, and of course, we have the dancers with us. But before I waste more time, let's go back to the mix. DJ JD, what do you have for us?
So, as per the dancers, they were requesting for some gospel jams. So that's why nimeona ni wase wameokoka. So I decided to do some new school gospel.
Yeah.
Then I'll be going back to some old school jams because for me I love old school.
I'm also a fan of old school.
Are you sure?
Take it away before to waste time, actually. Just take it away.
I thought you were lying.
No. Take it away, DJ JD.
Okay, on it.
our Twitter influencer today in studio. Hi. Hi. Boroyeng.
Yes,
Kwanza
I'm here.
where does that name come from? Because I've had a lot of comments about your name. Yeah.
Oh, Boroyeng, jina ilikuja back in around 2018.
Yeah.
When Uru alienda China pale to get some loan from China.
Yes.
So I just tweeted about Boroyeng, and then that name went viral. So that's where I come from.
You can stick to Evo.
You can stick to Evo.
Yeah, I know you're knowledgeable. That's why we have you.
Thank you.
To have you with us today. So on the socials, what's going on the socials apart from the Boys Club and of course Edgar Obare, the article that we have online on digital platforms? What do you think is also online in terms of trends?
In terms of trends, this guy from Kahawa West was brutally beaten by the police. He broke his nose, and then Edgar Obare, he's been training the guy Floyd, who was killed by the US police.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us about George Floyd. Do you think there's racism connected to this issue, or is it just did he commit any crime? What happened?
I did not commit any crime.
Yes.
I just saw the clip from the the hotel owners. He was not resisting the police at first.
Yeah.
So he was caught, and then he was like, I can't breathe. Just leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Edgar Obare, of course.
Edgar Obare.
Judging others.
Ai manzi anachoma bana. Ai.
Ameharibu.
Anaharibu.
Aha.
Unaharibu ndoa za wanaume huku nje.
Yeah, so is it okay to judge others and just dig dirt on people?
That's not I can't. How can at first there was that the Boys Club, and then there was Oporini Club.
Mm-hmm.
So Edgar at first, I think he was advertising about his arts. That's it.
But swali tu moja basi japata hadi sai.
Yes.
There is Edgar Obare issue, of course, with Jalango.
Yes.
Who leaked the screenshots? Do you
he
know?
had a spy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he was just spying on Makideo.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Jim Dance Crew, how are you?
I'm fine.
What have you seen on the socials? What has caught your
As
attention?
Boroyeng has said, the issue of Floyd, it really touched me because nilikuwa nadhani racism kitu maybe imeisha, but bado nini. Yeah, so that thing is not good at all.
Yeah, it's not okay. JD, what do you think about this issue? This George Floyd issue?
Because that is racism. Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a bit racist.
Yeah.
Boroyeng.
The whites hate the blacks.
What?
What if the same thing was done to a white guy? What do you think? I need justice.
Justice only for the white people.
Not for the black, actually. You know, there's this song back in NVA movement, F the police. It really touched me. I listened that song back then. Alafu uko kiangalia the lyrics and how the whites hates the blacks.
Yeah.
Maze, hey. Inafaisha sasa. Inafaisha. We need to team up. Yeah. Blacks for life.
Yeah, JD, talking about lyrics, what do you think is better? Is it the old school or the new school?
Okay, for me, I won't judge because actually old school is sweet. New school still same case is sweet. So there is nothing that I can say that like old school is better than new school. Because when you like we have party songs, old school party songs like Ni Friday, and we have new school party songs like Susanna. So I can compare the two.
You can compare the two?
Yeah, for me both are sweet.
Both are good, yeah?
Yeah.
I also love both, but at times Leah has changed.
When it comes to your favorite, what do you think?
Leah, what do you think is your favorite?
Man, when it comes to old, I'm not a new school person.
Yeah.
Wow. But when it comes to old school, me call songs are Brandy, talking about R. Kelly, P. Diddy, those are my people. Jamboree by Naughty by Nature, those are my people. You'd be surprised that that's the kind of music I listen to, but those are my people. I don't do new school.
You don't
Hao
do
ni
new
watu
school?
wangu wa 1980s.
New school is akina Mariam.
Talking of which, do you have some gengetone for us today, JD?
Come again?
Do you have some gengetone for us
Yeah, I have some.
I need to hear some Gengeton.
I know. To 1998.
By the way, director anasema ati Gengeton was banned.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Really?
That is Kenyan music. We can't ban our own music.
But you know what? For me, let me just make a request. You come a DJ konayo. Me natika tu something R. Kelly. You know that song that says Heaven I Need a Hug.
I have.
You know that song? You have it?
Yeah.
Play for me. In fact, I think that's a song we should end with.
As long as you will dance.
We actually
fine. Play it. Let's try.
I want to be taught some moves by the crew.
Yeah.
JD, what do you have for us as we end the show?
Yeah.
So I want us to join the crew and maybe get some dance moves. Leah, are you down?
Hey, my friend. I'll try. I won't promise I'm a good dancer, but I'll try.
Okay.
Okay, let me do some new school kidogo.
Oh, new school versus old school.
Yeah. Okay. We are trying to compare between the two.
Okay.
The sound.
We can't seem to hear anything yet in the studio.
The sound.
Hey, my friend, you want to kill me? Yo, by the way, I don't know. Oh, let me do what ambition. Anyway, we have to come to the end of Morning Cafe. It's always a pleasure to have you guys join us and for tuning in all the way till the end. Mendy Mariam, and today's topic is my thing.
I know, right? Let's do this again.
Definitely.
Done anything enough for this show? Yeah.
But we'll definitely do some old school new school sometime later. Invite Madoka tuambie zile vitu alikuwa nasikiza za old school. Though Madoka akai msi wa old school sana.
Mimi msa old school for sure. I love Kenyan old school. Kina Meja, Kina Jokali. They were so sweet.
Yeah.
They were singing from their heart. Chana sahi, people are singing, they are bragging about their cars.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming, Madoka and the dance crew. We appreciate your time. And of course, this, as always, is the case for every Friday entertainment. You better tune in every Friday for some entertainment from Mendy Mariam. Mendy?
Yeah, I think we have such a short time, Leah.
But it's okay. My name is Leah Ngari, and this is
Mendy Mariam. This has been Morning Cafe. Join us next week on Monday. It will be a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for watching.
And we have a lot for you on Monday. Thank you again. This has been a good morning. Have a good day ahead, and God bless you.
At this time, I want to paraphrase another text from the Old Testament, and this is Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 6.